Good morning, Javier.
Good morning. Is anybody in here?
Yes, we have 3 attendees so far.
Oh, perfect.
Javier, I just made you a co-host,
Okay. Thank you.
so you can do stuff.
Appreciate it.
So, Nate, the song is actually called A Brighter Day Ahead, and I thought it was perfect to put in for this.
Perfect. Perfecto mundo.
Nate, I can't hear anything.
We can hear you.
Can you hear it, Dr. Ramos?
Good morning, everyone. We're going to start in about 2 minutes. Just give everybody some time. So welcome. We're excited you're here, but we're going to give everybody some time to join the webinar, and we'll start in 2 minutes. Thank you so much for being here again. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and begin. I gather that people will be joining us throughout the day. So it looks like we have a great starting group. So first and foremost, I just want to say welcome and thank you so much for being here. I'm Richard Ramos. Again, thank you for joining us. We're excited to share our story today. Before we get started, we want to make sure you know we could not have been successful without all of our education and business partners. We are grateful for your participation. I promise there is something for everyone in our presentation today. You're probably wondering, scratching your head, why are we doing this event? Well, it's because we've heard stories from coast to coast about challenging experiences in this pandemic with school closures, virtual learning, and internet connectivity. Although we've experienced some of those very challenges, we've been able to find success overall. Throughout these unusual circumstances, our only goal has been to make learning fair and equitable for every child. That means to have materials and technology accessible for our children. We recognize there are many sad stories as of late, but it is nice to hear good news. And today we have just good news for you. Over the 2019-2020 school year, many things occurred which prepared us for school closures. You will learn more later in this webinar, but I wish to give you a quick preview. First, we rolled out a district-wide one-to-one iPad initiative starting in 2019. Second, we equipped each classroom with charging stations and flat screen televisions. Third, we put together a long range and a robust training program for school leaders. The long range plan was significant. And then finally, we enlisted a new level of leadership known as our technology learning leaders, and they are teachers in the field in the Roosevelt School District. Although I started my career in Roosevelt as a first-year teacher over 25 years ago, I spent time working in 5 other school districts after 2 years at Valley View Elementary School. Through experiences in other districts, I recognized a lack of training in technology use, especially for administrators. Coming back to Roosevelt 2 years ago, I was able to work with a talented team to flip the narrative. Before distributing iPads to students and MacBook Airs to teachers, we focused on training. We trained our administrators, our instructional coaches, our technology learning leaders, and most importantly, we trained our parents. This strategy was pivotal to our success, and it laid the groundwork for the pandemic and school closures. I'm not going to lie to you. It was a heavy lift, but we turned a corner. The change was significant enough that our work got noticed in the community. The district received recognition from the Arizona Technology and Education Association for Innovators of the Year. We barely had the chance to celebrate when spring break came, and we never returned after the spread of COVID-19. Although we had the best technology in the world, the executive team had to make some hard decisions here, whether or not to distribute iPads to support students in virtual learning. This was a tough decision because we spent millions on Apple technology, and it was our first year of implementation. Context matters. Our division pushed our team to make the decision to mass distribute iPads to support our students with online learning across the district. Our partners were huge. They helped us ensure every device, and we planned for a mass distribution schedule. During distribution, we put together one of the most robust teacher trainings. In just 1 week, and I think it was only 4 days because we had Good Friday that week, we offered classes to well over 400 teachers in Seesaw, how to use Zoom, digital citizenship, how to use clips, and also how to use the screen recording function. In addition, we started office hours to support our teachers on a regular basis. We were well on our way to reach our learners and their families. Our greatest accomplishment was making learning fair and equitable for every child. Each student received a device to support online learning from home. The shift from in-person to virtual learning was quite remarkable. It was not an easy task because we also had to shift mindsets and close the digital divide, especially with internet connectivity. The experience was messy, and I mean messy at times, but we stayed the course and eased into the 2020-2021 school year, where we are still closed, but guess what? We are still reaching our families. You will learn more about specifics later in our journey today. But for now, sit back, relax, maybe take some notes, and enjoy the adventure. All right, so it's time for me to introduce our first guest today. We're so fortunate to have a very special guest with us today. Let me tell you a little bit about her because it's quite impressive before I introduce and announce who she is. She's only the second elected female mayor of Phoenix. She is a graduate of Harvard University, and she earned an MBA from Wharton School of Business at the University of Pennsylvania. Go UPenn. In the city, she serves to diversify the economy, strengthen infrastructure investment, and work to make Phoenix a leader in sustainability. Leading the 5th largest city in the United States of America, it is my pleasure to introduce our very own Phoenix City Mayor, Miss Kate Gallego.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ramos, for that fabulous introduction. It is a pleasure to be with you here today. Also so glad to be here with Dr. Boyce, who serves on my advisory council for the mayor's office and is helping me build a better city. Thank you to the entire Roosevelt team, administrators, teachers, but families and students. You guys have accomplished so much and been a point of pride for the city of Phoenix during a tough time to be in education. We may remember 2020 as the year in which we learned a lot, but I don't know that anyone was saying it was ever going to be our easiest year. And it's certainly revealed, we already knew teachers had to solve and educators so many challenges, but my goodness, what we've asked has been outstanding. So as mayor and on behalf of the people of Phoenix, just want to start by saying thank you. I think when you chose this career path, you knew it would be full of challenges, but couldn't have anticipated this past set of challenges. So thank you for being ahead of the game and helping our students go digital and be more connected and just being great partners for us. I hope the city has been a good partner for you. Right now, we are working on a variety of different things, including getting more Wi-Fi and hotspots out into the community through a partnership led by Phoenix Union and our community college. But we've also been glad to partner with you on just trying to make sure you had more dollars to stay in academic programs. So the city and our school districts, the city's provided about 1 million pieces of protective equipment. We've partnered with you on food distribution and trying to make sure kids can focus on academics and not what is their next meal. But Roosevelt did the hard work of, we got some money and you did the hard work of getting that out there. So again, thank you for stepping up in so many different ways. We're going to continue to try to support learners, whether it be doing more curbside delivery for our libraries, or we're trying to do a laptop checkout program for students over the summer to stay digitally connected. And we're always welcome your ideas about how we might support what you are doing. But perhaps one of the biggest one is just to acknowledge how hard it's been and to say thank you for what you're doing. It's nice to be together with you virtually. The last time I was at a Roosevelt school, they told some of the students that someone important was coming, and they were very excited that it might be the new PE teacher. You know, I sometimes you don't meet expectations, but they were okay with it when they learned the mayor. But the PE teacher really that was really what we were looking for, was the new PE teacher in that area. It was one of my not so brilliant ideas to show up on a first day of school, and I was wanting to congratulate and say hello to the new parents, but they were already, particularly kindergarten parents, very nervous about what was in front of them, and disappointed that the new PE teacher wasn't the one doing the greeting. The PE teachers in Roosevelt, man, beloved. If you don't know you're appreciated, I can tell you those kids are very much appreciative. I also understand that many Roosevelt teachers have been vaccinated, and thank you. What you're doing keeps our community safer. It keeps your family safer. A lot of what I am actually doing today is fighting. Many of our essential city employees right now are not eligible, and I'm trying to get them added to the list for eligibility. Right now, if you go down to Travis Williams Community Center and try to get aid, the city has a program to prevent evictions, rental aid. But those folks who are working in person right now are not considered essential, and I'm trying to convince the state that they are. But I'm very glad that teachers are already recognized in that list, and thank you for getting vaccinated is the light at the end of the tunnel that hopefully can help us in a few months confidently take off the masks and know that we can keep everyone safe in our community as we do that. Another cool thing I'll be doing today is celebrating our city's 140th anniversary. The big day is officially tomorrow, but we're having an event, including with all of our living Phoenix mayors getting together today, just to give, hopefully remind people that it's the 140th anniversary. And so if you guys want to eat at your favorite Phoenix restaurant to celebrate small businesses or talk to your students about 140 years of Phoenix history, we would love to include the entire Roosevelt community in that milestone. We are among the biggest cities in the country, one of the youngest, but as an Arizona city, one of the oldest. So we hope you'll join a little bit of celebrating the years since incorporation, as well as acknowledging that we are on land that has been a rich part of this community and long before Phoenix was incorporated. And Governor Stephen Roe Lewis of the Gila River Indian community is going to join us and talk about the rich history that stretches much past 140 years. But we hope to celebrate our roots and the collaboration that farmers had to make this arid desert city possible. It is not the easiest place, but we really have that collaborative spirit, working together to overcome challenges. And that's why I wanted to be with you here today, because that spirit is alive and well in Roosevelt. So thank you for standing up for our students and fighting for a better future for our city. I am grateful to have you as partners.
Thank you so much, Mayor Kate Gallego. And I remember when you came to Roosevelt about 1.5 years ago and you read to our kindergartners. We appreciate your support. I don't know if you know this or not either, but this is our 2nd annual Digital Learning Day. And last year, you sent somebody from your office to declare Digital Learning Day right from our district boardroom. So we appreciate your support. Thank you so much for being here.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for advancing all types of learning, including digital.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I have the privilege of letting you know who our next speaker happens to be. And I'm so excited to introduce this guest to you. He's originally from Chicago, and he ventured to Arizona to find the sun, attend college, and build relationships. In his working history, he's become a skillful educator, especially in curriculum development, teacher training, and the superintendency leadership. Along the way, he developed his remarkable public speaking skills, and you're going to see energy today. He earned his doctorate in educational administration and supervision from Arizona State University. Go Devils! We're so excited to introduce you to our superintendent, Dr. Quentin Boyce.
Dr. Ramos, that is amazing energy. Anywhere I go to speak and share, if you could only come with me. I showed up as a 9. Right now I'm at a 15. So thank you, sir. I'm really excited. Again, my name is Quentin Boyce, the proud superintendent of the Roosevelt School District. Gonna spend about a good 10, 12 minutes with you just to talk about our community and just share a little bit about who we are. Before jumping in, I just want to say thank you again to our mayor, Mayor Kate Gallego, who we are so happy to be able to have her here and share space today. We're so fortunate for her leadership, especially as we navigate the last 12 months in the middle of a global pandemic. Thank you so much for prioritizing education and prioritizing the safety and the support for our community. We really appreciate it. Thank you. I do want to send a shout out. I see a few board members, our governing board members. This work would not be possible without their steadfast leadership, their steadfast guidance. We are doing remarkable things over these last couple of years, and I'll share just a few things with you as I kind of tell the story. I want to say thank you to Dr. Ramos and his team putting together Digital Learning Day, the 2nd annual of many future annual learning days. As we know by now, everything looks a little different. A year ago, we were huddled together in our governing boardroom before boarding a bus with a bunch of adults and driving through South Phoenix. This year, the fellowship, the community, it stays together, but it looks a little different through a digital format. So Dr. Ramos, you and your team, thank you for organizing what will be a fantastic and phenomenal day. Last but not least, I want to thank all of our educators, our teachers, our support staff, our kiddos that are going to open their virtual doors to allow our guests to be able to experience what it means to be a part of the Roosevelt community. And our guests who are here today, I do hope you enjoy the experience today. As we get started, I just want to ask, what do you know? When you think about South Phoenix, when you think about Roosevelt, this is obviously a rhetorical question. I'm not taking answers, but I wonder, what do you know? What do you think when you think Roosevelt and when you think South Phoenix? I ask you to take a second, reflect, and get your answer. And then what I want you to do is hold on to that answer for the next several hours, because at the end of this experience, Digital Learning Day, I want you to then take whatever your reaction is, think about how you answered this question at the top of the morning and see, is there a difference? Has your opinion and perspective evolved? Has your thought process changed as you get to intimately experience our community? So what do you know and what do you think about Roosevelt? Write it down, pin it on a board, and in 3-4 hours, I want you to come back and reflect on your original answer. Until then, I do want to go ahead and just tell you a little bit about who we are. Who are we? Picture from right here in our backyard. We are a community of over 1,000 employees. I often share and say that Roosevelt, we are the biggest, the largest employer right here in South Phoenix, which means the bigger, the better, the stronger we are, the bigger, the better, stronger the entire South Phoenix community is. We have over 100 community partners, people who are shouldering up to engage in the social experience called teaching and learning with us. And then my favorite part when it comes to who we are a community of over 8,000 beautiful young people, ready, willing, positioned to do amazing things and change our world for the better. We have 19 beautiful learning communities, each with their own climate, their culture, their ethos, their uniqueness. We're extremely proud of our 19 learning communities, all fitting under that umbrella of Roosevelt. Now, when you think about our community, I'm going to give you a few images to help paint the picture. When you think about Roosevelt, these are the types of pictures that I want you to remember. These are beautiful young people. This is our community. This is who we are. This is who we are. And as a community, we're all moving in the same direction towards this idea of success. Think about those beautiful young faces that you just saw. And our goal as adults is to create the conditions, create the environments to ensure that those beautiful young people grow up to do amazing things and simply be amazing humans. But one thing Dr. Ramos mentioned earlier in his initial opening that I say all the time is that context matters. When you think about school, you think about this idea of teaching and learning. We are in the business of teaching and learning, but that's only half the work we do. We stand in the gaps for our students, for our families, and we support in so many ways beyond just teaching and learning. We are a community of color. The majority of our families live at or below the poverty line. They qualify for free and reduced lunch, which means that there are obstacles that have to be navigated, and we shoulder up and stand in those gaps. We do that work with our families. That means that, and this is just the reality, many of our families have to navigate immigration issues. We're right there with them. We do the work with them. We navigate these realities with them. I'm going to tell you the truth. We navigate the social injustices that have been happening for years, for decades, but that have been highlighted over the last year in the midst of this pandemic. Many of our families navigate affordable housing issues, especially as our community, South Phoenix, continues to change over time. The demographic is changing over time. Across the country, affordable healthcare, affordable housing is such a big topic, and we stand in those gaps. We walk with our families, we support our families. I mentioned access to healthcare. Another thing that we stand in the gap for our families for, and we work with our families. Food insecurity, access to quality, healthy food options. The mayor mentioned, Dr. Ramos mentioned, we've been working with our families, feeding our families, especially in the middle of a pandemic. Over the course of a 6-month period, when the pandemic first started back in March of 2020, and it became a reality right here in our own backyard, we provided over 500,000 meals to our students and our families. This is the context of our community. And all of that within this past year has been happening in the context of a global pandemic. Something that's not unique just to Roosevelt, not just unique to Arizona, but our entire country. And this global pandemic isn't the reason for the inequities that exist, but the global pandemic has only exacerbated those inequities that were there before. We're committed to standing in gaps, as I've mentioned at this point, probably 1,000 times. So yes, we are in the business of teaching and learning. We're also in the business of social work. We're also in the business of helping to find and provide wraparound resources, because at the end of the day, we want our students, we want our families, we want our staff to have an amazing experience while they're here, while they're a part of the Roosevelt family. So again, that context matters, but that context does not predict the future. Understanding context is important for knowing how to navigate current state so that you can get to ideal state. So it's not a predictor of outcome, but it is important to understand current reality. A couple of years ago, we adopted this moniker of being bold. And we adopted this moniker of being bold for Zyler and for Kayleen. These are two beautiful examples of some of our kiddos. We know that this community needs and deserves the best, and we will be relentless in being bold when it comes to advocating, when it comes to advancing equitable opportunities for Zyler, for Kayleen, for the other 8,000 kids that are a part of our community. As I mentioned before, we're a community of color. Many of our families qualify for free and or reduced lunch. And sometimes when thinking about that demographic, people look through a deficit lens. And I'm here to tell you, don't do it. Don't look through a deficit lens. No matter circumstance, our students, our kiddos, they demonstrate a certain grit, a certain perseverance that when coupled with access and opportunity, they will go on to be amazing and do amazing things. We know it's true. So understanding that context, where do we go from here? I'm really excited. The past 12 months, the last year, in the wake of a pandemic, our community engaged in a strategic planning process. We didn't have an up-to-date strategic plan to guide what happens for the next 5 years in Roosevelt, and that was paramount. We didn't want to just hope that we ended up where we want to end up. Instead, we worked with our community in a collaborative process. So no one person owns this strategic plan. It is a product of our community, and it is now our North Star for the next 5 years. We created a new mission statement. We created a new vision statement, and words matter. So every word was chosen with intention. Order of words was chosen with purpose. And this is who we are. We developed core values, these 9 values, and we have working definitions. So when I say collaboration and you say collaboration, we're speaking the same language. We will be a values-driven organization. We are a values-driven organization. And right now, as you navigate a global pandemic, it is paramount to be driven by values, because difficult decision after difficult decision have had to be made, and it will continue to have be made. And we make those decisions from a place of doing what's best for our students, for our staff, for our families, for our community, through the lens of our core values, product of our strategic plan. And finally, as a result of our strategic plan, we came up with 4 strategic goals. How will we go from good to great over time, over the next 5 years? We have 4 goals. Each goal has key priorities, have proposed actions, and then measurable performance indicators to make sure we are hitting the mark. This is our North Star, people. This is how we become the premier urban school district in our country. This is our roadmap. Beginning of the year, before we finished and finalized the culmination of our strategic plan, we launched top 5 initiatives, our 2nd year in a row for doing it. Now, these initiatives have been crosswalked with our strategic plan, so we're all moving in the same direction with one document. Those 5 pieces are customer experience. We really want to be mindful of how we treat each other internally, but also how we treat our external stakeholders. We want to be mindful of leadership development. How do we grow our own? How do we help people be better professionals? whether it's in the current job or for the next job. We've invested heavily in professional learning communities, knowing that we're here for teaching and learning, knowing that we're here for student learning and achievement. That doesn't happen in a vacuum. It takes teachers working together, communities working together, being motivated, being guided by data. We've doubled down on professional learning communities. Social and emotional learning. I could spend the next 3 hours telling you why this is important, and I'm sure I probably don't. It was important prior to a pandemic. It is 10 times as important as we navigate a pandemic. And that is one of our points of focus for this year. And then finally, the one that's most relevant for today is our Apple integration. We have several of our Apple friends, our Apple family members that are on the call today. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate your support as we walk through this journey. I'm gonna spend a little bit of time talking about Apple integration. Dr. Ramos highlighted at the very beginning, so I'm gonna go superficial because this is really relevant to Digital Learning Day. Some of the highlights of what we've done this year. We've done 7 years worth of work in 7 months. It is crazy. The pandemic has caused us to be uncomfortably innovative. We've deployed Apple devices to our entire community. Every kid has one, every teacher has two, and we couldn't be more proud of that. In the wake of a pandemic, it's not uncommon for communities, for school districts to deploy devices. But one thing that we've done that may not be as common is, as Dr. Ramos mentioned, we've developed a whole suite of professional learning. Devices without training is a misnomer. It's a misshot. We've created learning and scaffolded, whether you talk about students or teachers, administrators, family members, and parents, been very mindful of differentiation to help people feel comfortable using these beautiful devices to really amplify and enhance the teaching and learning experience. Devices are one thing, connectivity is another. Again, the gap was exacerbated by the pandemic. We had the devices, we rolled them out and quickly realized that so many of our families did not have access to high-speed, reliable internet. And in 2020, I firmly believe access to internet, high-speed, reliable internet, is a right and it's not a luxury. So we've worked with our community partners, we've worked within, hell and high water, we've worked to get every kid connected, whether it be through hotspots or deploying school buses equipped with Wi-Fi in our community. And we're proud to say that we've connected our families. Another highlight as a result of our technology integration, our Apple integration initiative. And then finally, what you'll see today, I won't spend much time here, is just the innovation in teaching and learning. Teaching and learning looks different. Teaching and learning should look different. We had to be nimble. We had to think differently. We had to be innovative as a result of the pandemic. And thank goodness we did. Because the reality is the old way of teaching and learning didn't work for everybody. And so we're not gonna blow this shot to really be innovative and think differently. And the technology that we've adopted, the technology that we've embraced has helped us think differently. It has enhanced that teaching and learning experience between adult and child. And it's better helping us prepare our kids and really our staff for the future as we move forward. This year we adopt the moniker, I am Roosevelt, we are Roosevelt, Somos Roosevelt. I couldn't be more proud of who we are. By the time we're done, if you're not affiliated with our community, I guarantee you will want to be. So I'm excited to be here. I thank the team for putting together this day to showcase and tell our story. And I hope you enjoy your time today during Digital Learning Day. Dr. Ramos, thank you for coordinating and thank you for having me.
Dr. Boyce, thank you so much. I told you he was going to bring energy. Thank you so much for sharing our story and our history. We greatly appreciate that. But we have been working in overdrive, and I promise I never sleep. But here we go. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to transition over because it's almost time to visit classrooms. Before we do so, I think it's really important that you know the schedule for the day. And so I'm going to go ahead and quickly share the schedule. Again, Dr. Boyce, thank you so much for your energy and your time. So before you on the screen, you see our schedule. We put together a schedule so you can experience a little bit of everything today. In just a few moments, we will venture into virtual classrooms. You received an email last night with an attachment. In that attachment is a matrix of classrooms you may visit by simply clicking on the Zoom link. So go back to your email if you don't have your PDF and download that document. At 9:10, after visiting those classrooms, we're going to start to venture back in to this large room here, this large virtual room. So be back into the main room where we can get started promptly at 9:15 a.m. I'm going to tell you why. Because the panel happens to be made up of some kindergarten students, and time is everything to them. So be back here at 9:10 so we can get started with them at 9:15. There will also be teachers. There will also be technology personnel. They're all willing to answer your questions from the audience. And then, of course, we made some preset questions as well. After the panel discussion today, an authentic dialogue will happen from some of our Apple partners. They'll ask me questions about the Roosevelt journey. And I'm particularly talking about Dr. George Chung. So at 9:45, the two of us will get together and we will share how we developed the vision, how we changed mindsets in South Phoenix, how we established a culture and leveraged capacity right here in the Roosevelt School District. To bring things to a close today, we're going to encourage the audience to ask us questions at the end that we might not have answered during our story. We'll work collaboratively to answer your questions starting at 10:30. So without further ado, let's visit classrooms. Please open your PDF document and visit as many classrooms as you would like, or if you see something interesting and you want to stay in that classroom for a while, please do so. We invite you to do that. Be back here at 9:10 so we can get started immediately at 9:15. Again, thank you so much. We could not do it without you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remember this is the live classroom that you'll be joining. So you want to make sure that you are muted and your camera is turned off to not be disruptive to the students. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Now would be the time that you'd want to leave this session and join the actual classroom session that you're interested in. Again, once again, you will be joining a live session, so please mute your camera and your audio so that way it's not disruptive to students. Thank you very much. For those of you still left in the room, now's the time that you can go ahead and switch over to the classroom and take part in a live classroom instruction and view that. Again, please mute your camera and your microphone so that it's not disruptive to the students and the teachers. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, now is the time to go ahead and watch, to join the live classrooms. Once again, please make sure you mute your audio and turn off your videos, not to be disruptive to students. And go ahead and join as many classrooms as you'd like. Just be back here at 9:10ish for in the main room for the rest of the session. Thank you. If you have any questions, please go ahead and in the Q&A and ask those, and I'll try to answer those best I can. Again, now's the time to go ahead and switch over to the live classroom discussions and viewing of the live classrooms. Please make sure you turn off your video and mute your audio as not to be disruptive to the students. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A, and I'll be more than happy to try and answer them. Thank you. Participants of the Zoom meeting, now would be the time to go ahead and join the classrooms if you're interested. Um, they are live classroom instructions. Please make sure you turn off your video and mute your audio as you join those. It's not to be disruptive to the students or the teacher. And we'll see you back here at 9:10 for the rest of the session. If you have any questions, please put them in the Q&A. We'll be more than happy to answer them for you, or try to. Ladies and gentlemen, now would be the time to join the live classroom discussions that are happening. Again, if you do, you'll want to leave this session, click on the link for the classroom that you'd like to join. Please make sure that your video is turned off and your audio is muted as you switch over to not be disruptive to the students. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, now would be the time to go ahead and leave this session and join the main classroom sessions that are happening right now. If you do, please make sure that you turn off your video and mute your audio as it not be disruptive to the teacher and students, because these are live classrooms. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, now would be the time to go ahead and join the live sessions that are happening at the moment. If you do, please remember to turn off your video and mute your microphone. That way you cannot disrupt the classroom that is live. Thank you very much, and we hope to see you back here at 9:10 to continue our sessions. Ladies and gentlemen, now would be the time to go ahead and join the live sessions that you got on the invite. Please remember to turn off your camera and mute your audio, as these are live classrooms and we don't want to be disruptive to the students. So please go ahead and leave this session. You'll want to join the session that you're interested in. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A button on the bottom right-hand side of the Zoom session, or on your screen, it should say Q&A, and we'll be more than happy to try and answer those for you live. Thank you very much. We hope to see you back here at 9:10 to continue on the session. Thank you very much for your time. Ladies and gentlemen, now would be the time to join the live sessions that are going on right now in the classrooms. If you join them, please remember to turn off your video and mute your audio as not to be disruptive to the class. We look forward to seeing you back here at 9:10 to continue on the sessions. Thank you. Thank you for joining our session. If you have any questions, there is a Q&A button on the bottom right-hand side of your Zoom. Go ahead and click on that if you have any questions and get back to us. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we have about 15 minutes before we can go ahead and come back to the session here. So if you'd like to go ahead and still join some classroom sessions, please do so. You'll want to leave this session and click the link on the other session, and you'll be able to see the classroom environments. Please make sure to turn off your camera and mute your audio so that you can not be disruptive to the students. And if you have any questions, there is a Q&A button in your Zoom session that you can click on, and we'll try to get to your question as soon as we can. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, you can go ahead and leave this session and join the live classroom events that are happening at the moment. If you do remember, these are live classes and we don't want to be disruptive to the teachers and students. So please ensure that you mute your audio and turn off your camera before you join the other sessions. And we'll see you back here at 9:10 to continue our panel discussion. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A button on the bottom of your Zoom link and we'll get to you as soon as we can. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we still have 10 minutes available for you to join a in-person classroom discussion going on right now. If you do, please go ahead and mute your audio and turn off your videos to not be disruptive to students. If you have any questions getting there or need some help, there is a Q&A button on the bottom of your Zoom link. Go ahead and click on that. Excuse me, the Zoom call. Go ahead and click on that and we'll try to answer those as fast as we can. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, we still have about 7 minutes, so you could go ahead and click over to live classrooms if you're interested. The links were sent in the email. You'd have to leave this session, join those sessions, and you can actually watch a live classroom. If you decide to do that, please make sure that you mute your microphone and turn off your audio. That way you're not disruptive to this class or the students, because it is a live classroom event. If you have any questions, there is a Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom call, and go ahead and click on that. We'll try to answer your questions as soon as possible. Please be back here at 9:10 so we can continue our discussion. Thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Ladies and gentlemen, we still have about 5 minutes left, 5 minutes before we need to be back in the session. So if you still want to go ahead and view a couple classrooms, they are live and still going on, please go ahead and do so. You may do so by leaving this session and clicking on the link for the other session, and you'll be able to go ahead and look in that classroom. If you do have any questions, there is a Q&A button on the bottom of your Zoom call. Please go ahead and click on that. And once again, please make sure that you mute your audio and turn off your camera when you join those sessions, as to not be disruptive to the students in the class. Thank you very much. We look forward to having you back here at 9:10 to continue our discussion. Thank you very much. Looks like we have some more people that are coming back from the breakout sessions. Thank you very much for coming back. We will be starting at 9:10, or sorry, bringing you back by 9:10. So we've got a couple more minutes, and then we'll go ahead and continue our discussion. Thanks for promptly coming back before the 9:10 requested time. Thank you. Thank you very much for joining the main session. We'll be starting shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming back to the main session. We should be starting up shortly. Thank you. I hope you enjoy the breakout sessions, and we'll be starting up shortly. Thank you very much. Thank you for your back. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for making it back to the main session. We should be starting very shortly. And thank you very much.
Good morning. In about 2 minutes, we'll get started. I'm hopefully you enjoyed your session. It's always nice to be around children. So in 2 minutes, we'll get started and we'll have a conversation about some of the things that you had the opportunity to see. You can ask questions of our panel in just a few moments. Again, these are the experts in the field. And so we're going to really trust our kindergartners, have some great answers for you today. That's the part I'm really excited about, but teachers will be there as well. And then our technicians. So in about 2 minutes, we'll get started. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions or you want to make a comment about something you saw, please go ahead and use the Q&A button in your Zoom call, and we can go ahead and start trying to answer those for you and seeing those. So please go ahead and click the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom call, and we'll get to those as soon as we can. Thank you.
Again, we'll start in 1 minute. We're going to give people the opportunity to come from their virtual classrooms back over. So in 1 minute, we'll get started. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like it's that time to go ahead and have our panel discussion. And so before doing so, I want to introduce you to our two moderators for today. And they're both taking on very different styles. So please bear with us. These next two leaders have been instrumental in our success in the Roosevelt School District. One of them is in charge of community engagement in the Roosevelt School District, where advertising is always a great need for us in Apple. The other serves to support our Apple initiative with professional learning. I'm happy to introduce both of them because they have been critical to our Apple initiative. Our first is the Executive Director of Community Engagement, Ms. Diana Figueroa, and our Apple Professional Learning Specialist. We know her as Apple Melissa, but for all of you, she's Miss Melissa Kreider. Both will be fielding questions today for our panel. And remember, you can ask your questions in the Q&A button on your Zoom link. Okay, thank you so much. Looking forward to a great conversation. I'll turn it over to you, both Apple Melissa and Miss Figueroa.
Thank you, Richard. Dr. Ramos, thank you for putting on this amazing day. Thank you all for joining us. I am Diana Bejarano Figueroa. I'm the Executive Director of Community Engagement here at Roosevelt, and I'll be serving as one of your moderators. We have several pre-generated questions for the panel today, and then you have the Q&A option as well. Before we get started, I would like to introduce our panel of experts. We have Dr. Richard Ramos, Executive Director of Innovation. We have Nate Hawkins, Manager of Technology. Brandon Wondering, he is with our IT department at the help desk. Mackenzie Brown, she is a teacher in kindergarten. Ms. Shannon Connors, a 7th, 8th grade math teacher. Mr. Brett Wagner, K through 3 teacher. Shauna Balser, K-8 teacher. Jennifer Laughlin, 7th and 8th grade teacher. Lona Calderon, 2nd grade teacher. Aaliyah Jones, 2nd grade student. Lavette Bolden, 2nd grade student. And Evelyn Reese Coronado, a kindergarten student. Thank you all for being on this panel. We will get started with questions. And the first question that we have, and anyone on the panel can feel free to jump in, it is, how does virtual learning help all students learn? Who wants to take that one? Anybody?
Can you repeat the question?
How does virtual learning help all students learn?
So I'll go ahead and start, and then I'm going to have like Mackenzie or Lona go ahead and share, because it's quite an amazing experience. One of the things that we've really focused on this year happens to be critical thinking, creativity, and real world engagement. And so I'm going to hone in on real world engagement because I know that's happening in Lona's classroom as well as Mackenzie's.
Lona, Mackenzie?
Sorry, I had to unmute. Virtual learning helps all students learn just by helping them make connections that they normally probably wouldn't in the classroom. I really have to be innovative and creative in helping them stretch themselves and learn, because I'm not physically there with them. So part of the learning is in their hands. So I try to give them opportunities to work with each other, take on leadership roles. Today I had 2 of my students, they're my student leaders, and I let them take remote control of my Zoom meeting, and they control my slides, and it kind of helps give them a little sense of not only the leadership, but just confidence in themselves. And I think that's just, one of the ways that helps them learn.
Yeah, for me with kindergarten, I feel as though not necessarily I had to learn a new way to teach, kind of, because with the babies, it's a little bit different, because you don't think about how we teach them how to hold a pencil. We teach them how to hold scissors. We teach them how to write every single letter. And, for a lot of these kids, their parents, they're their kid, their mom and dad's baby. So it's easy for their mom to be like, oh, you can't do it. I'll just go ahead and do it for you. So I had to come up with new and creative ways to get them to want to do it themselves. So I had to do a lot of like digital activities, because the digital activities, they intrigue them more than the paper and pencil. So I had to supplement, like, couldn't all be paper and pencil. It had to be, a good balance of both digital and like regular paper and pencil learning. So.
Awesome, thank you. Melissa, do we have a question in the chat? If not, I'd like to ask.
Diana.
Oh, go ahead.
We actually do, if that's okay. And I am going to maybe toss this one to Dr. Ramos. What can business and community partners do to help support teachers during this time?
Oh my goodness, our business partners are so critical to what we do in Roosevelt School District. First and foremost, there's some things that happen behind the scenes that you don't see. But let me go ahead and share what we had to do when we went into school closure because of the pandemic. So the first thing that we had to do is make sure that all of our students had devices. And when you're getting devices out to a community of 8,000, that's a huge task. And so sometimes our business partners need to support us in providing like some of the volunteers to help us get out. We practice all the CDC guidelines, and we make sure that we're safe and secure first, but we need runners, we need people to support us in getting the devices out to the community. Usually it's a mobile drive-through, but it takes like a lot of people in order to support us with getting those iPads from like their central location. Usually it's a library over to the parking lot because we want to keep and limit the amount of movement of people and make sure that we're safe and have all the PPE on to get the device to the parent. That's the first way. The second way is so many people are losing jobs right now that the first thing that people are cutting in order for their family to survive happens to be their internet connection. So that's the first thing to go. And so we have struggled, and we've done a great job of like bringing that digital divide to a close. You know, we worked with a variety of partners like the Arizona Cardinals, Cox Communication, you know, some of our contractors in order to donate funds in order for us to get hotspots for each of our families. And so now we have a huge supply of hotspots in order to support our families with internet connectivity. We also took some of those funds in order to equip 4 buses with Wi-Fi, and we've taken those buses and we park them out in the community so that way our parents can drive up to the bus and upload or download assignments, use the internet for however long is necessary, but we have them at parks like El Prado, Circle K Park. We also have it at Nueve Park, you know, and Mahatalk Park. We park those buses in a community space so that way around the district, so that way our parents and families can stay connected. So the donations make that all possible. In addition to that, one of the things that has been really supportive is, you know, that some of the devices, you know, because of wear and tear, which is pretty normal and natural, sometimes a broken screen or a damage to a keypad or a case or something like that happens. And we need to have a constant ongoing fund in order for us to replace or repair those damages. And remember, we haven't seen the iPads in a year because they've been out into the community. And so we need the support of our business partners in order to make those things happen, in order to make that connect and close that digital divide. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ramos. Now, I'd like to ask a student question. Is there a student here that can answer? How does it feel to be working virtually, and do you get bored? Do we have any students who can answer that question?
I don't see my
I'm gonna toss it to a teacher. One of you, Mackenzie or Shauna or whoever would like to answer it. Do the students seem to enjoy it, or do they seem to get bored at times?
I can go ahead and answer that one. So my classroom was pretty much paperless before the pandemic shut down our physical schools. So that was something that luckily we had already been started, but I find the engagement a lot higher with technology, both when we're in person and when we're learning from home, because there's just so many choices kids have. So kids are able to choose how to respond. So I know some people were in our showcase for a couple minutes when a student was sharing a gravity video he had made. So students were given the option to show their learning about in their science class, how did they want to show how they had learned. And he chose to make a video of trains in his house because he loves Thomas the Tank Engine, and he was able to use the iPad for that. My 8th graders are able to research their high school that they're going through next year, and they could use the iPad to show off their presentation that way. So I like the fact that it gives students so many choices, and I've noticed such a higher engagement using the technology both in person and distance learning.
Thank you so much. That's great. Anyone else want to chime in on that? Or if not, we can go to the next question. How much training did you receive, any of you, in technology to prepare for this virtual learning setting? Shauna?
Yep.
Brett?
I'm gonna go ahead and select somebody because I know that you know, both of these individuals are technology learning leaders. And so Mackenzie and Shannon, if you could share what we do in technology training for that particular meeting, I think that would be really helpful.
So yeah, we meet, is it like once a month?
It is once a month.
Once a month. And this is my first year, and it's also my second year teaching, so I'm fairly new. So this is my first year as a technology learning leader, and we meet once a month. And Dr. Ramos and Apple Melissa, they give us lots of tips. And we actually just did a book study. And well, we started a book study. We read like the first few parts of the first chapter, and we did a really cool activity where we learned about the animation. We learned about an animation feature, which I thought was really cool. And so I think a lot of it is just like we meet and we get tips and tricks for ourselves, and then we are able to take those to our staff at our school. So like we're able to give trainings to our staff and like let them know what we know and give them cool things. But I like to learn myself, so I kind of do some more stuff outside. Like I'm always on like the Apple Teacher, and I look at the Apple Ed hashtag for like things that I can try to do. So but Apple Melissa and Dr. Ramos are also great helps.
So kind of to build off of that, our technology learning leader program is a leadership role established by district for teacher leaders. And so each site, each school site has a technology learning leader, and we meet monthly and do a lot of training, technology training as a group, and a lot of things like Mackenzie shared book studies and discussions and sharing of ideas. And then we bring that back to our site. And so I know like on my site, I use things like surveys or just talking to teachers to gauge what kind of training we need. And then I'm able to provide the training for our staff right at our site as a technology learning leader. So I do a lot of different things, like everything from very basic, how do we use the basic apps, to teachers who are ready for more advanced and how can we use this to really innovate our classrooms. And so the technology learning leader model is great because it allows teachers to take ownership of their own school sites, and then we can go back and provide the training for our teachers based on our site needs.
So Diana, we got a question from the chat that I think would be great to ask. So we have two of our specials teachers here, Shauna and Brett. They are both our music teachers, and we have a question. What challenges do special area teachers have when teaching virtually online, especially in music when you're used to, kids playing instruments? So Shauna, how about ladies first? What if you go ahead and...
Yeah, absolutely. So in music, it is a little challenging because we don't have that group experience for instruments or group singing. So to kind of remedy that, in my classroom, we've been using a lot of virtual instruments. So the kids can still manipulate things. We've been utilizing GarageBand a ton, and just various websites that are free, things like Chrome Music Lab, just so it's not the same as a physical instrument, but finding resources to provide the closest thing that we can. And just getting those instruments in there, and things with like singing, we still sing together. And I explained to the kids, it's not going to be the same. We all have different Wi-Fi speeds, so it might sound a little messy, but they still get that experience singing, which I think is really important, is just trying to replicate the in-person classroom as much as possible so they don't really feel like they're missing out on anything. Obviously, it's not the same, but just trying to bridge the gaps whenever possible. But also just, I know I have a separate Zoom code, so they have to leave their classroom teacher to log in for me, and making sure they actually do that is just really working on that community building and doing community circle. It's a non-negotiable. We do it every single time they come to music, K8. And sometimes it takes 2 minutes. The kids go through the questions real fast, but sometimes it takes 10. And I don't mind, because building that community is what keeps them coming back. And so I think that's a really important thing for specials to just keep doing. It's not just the classroom teachers, but we should do it as well to build that community within our own rooms. Brett?
Yeah, I totally agree with all that. And then the only other thing I would add was that specials a lot of times is fun for students. And it traditionally has been fun for students for them to come to specials. And we usually do learning through games and interacting socially. So to readapt all of those activities, those guessing games, those pass and follow the leader games on Zoom was challenging, but we found that it really works with the right adaptations. All of those fun activities can be done online as well.
That is so awesome. So the next question that we'd like to ask the panel is, how does technology empower students to control their own learning?
You mind if I start that question and then we build on it? Because I'm going to tell you something that we've been working with our technology learning leaders on in their trainings. And I would love for Shannon, Brett, and Mackenzie, if you could like hone in. One of the things that's really important is project-based learning. And so every school district is working towards some form of project-based learning, but we live it and breathe it in Roosevelt. And so that's one of the things that prepared us for the pandemic, is because I'm a design thinker. So I believe that kids should work together first.
When
They
was the
already have
a report that you ran that did not have this on there.
So I'm going to go ahead and continue. I just wanted to go ahead and share.
Okay. All right. Thanks. Bye.
All right. So I'm going to continue. But I'm a design thinker. I want kids to collaborate and work together first, because they have some idea about the world in which they live in which they come from, right? I always want them to define a problem. That's the second step. So empathy, define a problem, and then they have ideas and they can share their ideas with each other and start an ideation process. That's number 3. That's the third step. The fourth step happens to be develop a prototype. How are you going to solve that real world problem and develop that strategy or develop that prototype model or piece of work? And then finally, show it to an audience, present it. So that way the audience may go ahead and criticize it, give feedback in order to make it better. And the process becomes cyclical. So Brett, Mackenzie, Shauna, Lona, it's all yours. Shannon.
I can say one quick thing about that. And one thing that we've really been trained on, and Apple is one of their main focuses, is the personalization of learning. So when you're doing a project, students have significant choice on how they want to execute that project and present it to others. We teach them how to use a wide variety of apps. So when it comes time for them to show what they know, they can do it in their own way.
Awesome.
That's great. Anyone else?
Yeah, I would just add on the choice of how to express your learning is what I think has been the most valuable for sure. Honestly, we say like we teach them these apps, but they teach me so much more. Like they are so good at figuring these things out. And I've seen even like more reluctant students who are not necessarily comfortable like participating out loud or whatever, just shine when it comes to this project-based learning and the choice. So I recently had we had our parent-teacher conferences, and I had my 8th graders sharing their research on their high school to their families, and they were allowed to choose a way to present that. And this one student came up with this absolutely beautiful keynote with graphs and pictures and everything. And I said, I'm so proud of this. Like, you know, I said, like, I'm so proud of how you did this. And you usually aren't this eager to participate. Like, what is different now? And she said, I love these projects because I get to choose how I want to share with my family. And so it was a great experience to see how that choice empowers learning.
Yeah, for me, for kindergarten, I feel like it's a little different. I feel like I spend more of my time teaching them like the foundations of the iPad. So like how to mark up in notes. We use notes a lot. We write numbers and we hold them up. Like I've taught them how to set alarms for when they need to come back to class, because a lot of them don't come back. I've taught them how to speak to Siri. And a lot of them, they get mad. They're like, don't use Siri for math, because somebody got caught asking Siri, what's 2 + 2? So we have that rule. But yeah, so I feel like with me, I teach them some of the foundation skills, like how to take a picture, how to, add the different things. So, and then we build on that as the year goes on. It's a little bit more difficult with distance learning just because on Zoom, they have the black screen, but we try to make the most of it. But when we're in person, most definitely, I use a lot of those foundation skills on the iPad.
I just wanted to say for 2nd grade, they're at that kind of age where they are getting more independence, but they are still reliant on adults to help them. So technology has been a struggle for some. So to help them kind of take control, I have them, be my teacher helper. They're a co-host in my Zoom. They teach each other how to do things in Zoom, how to do things on different apps. I let them take on their own teacher role, and it kind of helps them become more confident with the technology, where at the beginning of the school year, it was really hard with my class because they did not use technology a lot in first grade. And I'm big on technology. So I've really seen them grow, and it's just kind of giving them the wheel and trusting them, and they just amaze us every time.
So Lona, to follow up on that, I'd like to ask, the next question is, how do parents feel about their children using technology?
I know all of my parents love it, because most of my parents are not very technology savvy. A lot of my parents had to go to the school just to get help with setting up the iPads. Most of my students are teaching the parents about technology. So I know they love it because it's teaching them, and they see their children doing things that they wouldn't normally be able to do. Most of my students don't have access to a technology device. Their student iPad is the only technology in the home. So it's really opened up a whole new world for them, and it really prepares them for when they're adults. And there's technology in every single thing you do, and you have to know how to use technology. So I feel like it's really empowering them.
If you don't mind me adding
Sure,
on to that.
Absolutely.
Being at the help desk in the technologies office, get to talk to a lot of parents every day, and they are learning from their kids. They are asking their kids questions as they are talking to me. They're like, whoa, what, this app can do this, or this iPad can do that, or so, at the very beginning, parents were calling in, they were asking for help, and now they call in and they know where everything is at. They're asking their kids. So I think parents, along with their students, are learning at home about technology, and it's only going to help them. And then kids are realizing that rather than asking their teacher or calling us, they're asking their parents, because now their parents are becoming experts as well along with them. So it's a great opportunity to talk to those parents.
That is pretty amazing. And I know that our FACE coordinators have been working with the parents as well to help them, and IT. And so thank you all for all that you do for our community and our parents. I have a question about the Imrsd Online Academy. Can someone tell us a little bit more about that?
So I'll tell you a little bit about it, and we're opening our doors to that online academy next year, Imrsd. It goes along with our motto, which is I Am Roosevelt. And so we're pretty excited about it. We applied for this program last year, and 2 people on this panel, they were instrumental because they were on the interview process where we actually applied, and we demonstrated that we could actually teach virtually online. And so I'm going to turn it over to them, but it's an academy for those that want to enroll. And it's not just in Roosevelt, it's all over the state of Arizona. And so I'm going to be working with your team, Diana, community engagement, and we're going to put out a huge advertisement campaign because we want to build enrollment, and we want to make sure that we let people know from all over the state of Arizona that we can provide your child the best education possible virtually in this pandemic, because you saw it firsthand today. We know that we have the capacity for 2 reasons, because we have teachers that teach effectively, and then 2, we have the best technology in Apple in the world. And so we're excited. We know we can do it, but I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Shannon Connors and Lona Calderon, because the 2 of them were so instrumental in helping us become certified as an online academy. So Shannon, Lona, what was your experience like?
Just with setting up the program this summer?
So you can talk about setting up the program, you can talk about Canvas, you can talk about like any area, because what was that interview like, first of all?
Well, so we got called in summer. It was a pretty quick turnaround. I think we learned Canvas in like an hour or 2. So Canvas is a learning management system online that we're using now with our students. It's wonderful. And we learned Canvas in like an hour or 2. And then we all created courses to present to the Arizona Department of Education. So the interview was a few hours long, and we just showed different ways and strategies we could use Canvas and other programs to engage students online and monitor progress and ensure that all students were learning. I thought it was a great experience personally for myself with going into leadership, and then also with just preparing for the school year, because we ended up using it with our district all year, and we still do. And so we just basically got a head start on Canvas, and then we're able to help others in our district with it as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shannon. How about you, Lona? Because you had an experience as well. You were a part of that process. So you want to explain?
Sure. I knew, you know, teaching is my second career. This is only my second year of teaching. I worked for a large utility for 17 years before, so I knew technology very well, but I had never heard of Canvas, never used it, never looked at it. And like Shannon said, we had to learn it very quickly. But it, you know, once we dove into it, it was scary at first. And then once we started, you know, learning it and using it, we're like, this isn't that bad. So it was a wonderful opportunity. Now for second grade, I do not use Canvas currently. I use Seesaw just because it's more kid friendly, but I still feel Canvas is a great tool. And, you know, you can use them together. The interview process was, it was a little scary, I'll admit, but it was also it was just kind of a wonderful opportunity, and it was an experience I've never had, you know, being a new teacher and new to education. It was great to see that side of it, and I learned a lot. And I feel like what has been created is just something that it's just amazing, and could be a model for other school districts as well.
Thank you so much. I want to take the time to thank each and every one of you, not just for participating today, but for everything that you've been doing as a technology learning leader, as an IT person, as a director. All of you are doing amazing things in South Phoenix, and our students and our families appreciate it more than you probably will ever know. So thank you again for creating opportunities. I'm turning it over now back to Dr. Ramos.
Awesome. Diana, Melissa, thank you so much for moderating today. And I want to thank everyone on the panel. Your work is so appreciated. And remember, I'm only successful because all of you are successful. That's what people do that are effective. They surround themselves with amazing teams, and you are amazing. So thank you so much. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. So we're going to go ahead now and transition to our next event. And I just want to introduce to you somebody that I feel is really special because they have helped and contributed to our success in Roosevelt School District. His name is Dr. George Chung, and he's been working with Roosevelt now for about a year. And so every Friday he's dedicated to come to work with our team, even if that means waking up early in the morning at 6 o'clock in the morning to be on a 7 o'clock meeting because he's on the West Coast. So he serves as the Apple K-12 Education Leadership Executive in the Southwest region. I feel fortunate to work with him on a weekly basis, and sometimes it's just a random phone call. We discuss the latest research in education, effective teaching strategies, and ways to utilize technology to support learning. We thought we would have an authentic dialogue today and share the Roosevelt School District story. Good morning, Dr. George.
Good morning, Dr. Ramos. Thank you so much for that kind introduction. And thank you for all of you that are joining us today. And, you know, I hope that you are able to get a glimpse, just a glimpse and snapshot of what's actually happening here at Roosevelt. We know that there's been a lot of things happening this year. And the fact of the matter is, as we've been working through this year, Dr. Ramos and his team, Dr. Boyce and his vision for the district have really moved and said, we don't want to just continue to sustain what we did in the past, but how do we look even towards the future? And that is actually going to be our conversation today. We are going to really hone in on that vision, because I think as we've watched and experienced and seen different things in the classrooms that we visited today. I'm hoping that you saw a glimpse of what the vision, what the culture of the Roosevelt district is, and thinking about this idea of even that idea of how do we change some of this? How do we move towards that direction? So you out there listening all across the country, I hope that as we have this conversation, Dr. Ramos and I'm just going to ask him a few questions, and they're going to be bucketed into 3 areas. It's going to be the vision, the culture, and the capacity. And as we start to think about those things, I hope that you would be thinking about some of the questions you might have. And please, by all means, put them into the chat, because we would love to hear, because this is your opportunity now to kind of think about, as leaders from your own districts, what's happening here and how you might be able to learn and take some of those back to your district. I'm sure you're doing great things. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that as you're thinking about your district, you came here today to see what things you might be able to lean into and think about things that you can bring back to your district. So with that in mind, Dr. Ramos, thank you again. And could you just share a little bit about yourself? And I don't mean just your position, because, you know, I will say this, Dr. Boyce, when he was speaking, I said, you know, I am ready to go marching. I mean, I felt like I was at church standing up and saying, preach it, brother, preach it. And I want to go marching and walking into the streets with you to really empower our students. And I feel like, as you know, Dr. Ramos, you and I have had these conversations before. There's something different. You're not just, and I don't mean this by any means, you're not just an administrator. There's something deeply rooted here. So could you share a little bit about what you do, but also why you do what you do?
So again, Dr. Chung, thank you so much. So I only have one goal. And my only goal is to make sure that learning is fair and equitable for every child. And there's a reason for that. I come from a small community. Many of you might know it. It's Globe, Arizona. We're a small mining town of about 6,000 people. It's a very diverse area made up of a large number of Native Americans, Latinos, and Caucasians. And so we learned diversity at a very young age there. And one of the things that's really critical is I come from a background that a lot of these family members, a lot of these students come from. I came from the same situation. And so I was one of those kids growing up that if I didn't have support, and if I didn't have good teachers, and if I didn't have a family that loved me, then I would not have made it. And so it was all those influential people. They cared about me. They had high expectations, and they held me to those high expectations. In addition to that, they had conversation with not only me, but my family as well. They also put all the supports necessary in order for me to succeed academically. Something that a lot of people don't know about me is my parents were only 15 when they had me, 15. Wow. So they were kids raising kids, and we didn't have a lot of money. And so going to college was only a dream. And so growing up in this family, like I recognize the need to surround myself with amazing people. And in school, I really excelled in that area. And so identified as a special ed student in first grade, I recognized when I was getting pulled out of the classroom that I had work to do, that I needed to work harder in order to grasp what I was learning, grasp the curriculum. And because a lot of my family members spoke Spanish, and I did not, it still made things a little bit fuzzy for me because I was stuck somewhere in between. And so because of the hard work and the effort, I was able to leave special education by second grade. And then I decided to go ahead and apply myself. Again, I did not do it without without the help of other people. And then from there, of course, once I journeyed into middle school and I journeyed into high school, I learned that leadership was my thing. That was where I was passionate. And it was because of leadership that I was able to go to college. And so I'm so grateful for my background and my experience. And so I know what it's like in Roosevelt in order to have to roll up your sleeves, apply yourself, be dedicated, give all of your effort, and then work hard in order to get there. I am one of these kids. I want them to also dream the impossible and use me as a model. Work hard and you can make it happen. I was fortunate for a leadership opportunity, which gave me the chance to go to Arizona State University and earn my BA.
You know, Dr. Ramos, it definitely feels like you're anchored in the why. And it definitely feels that, you know, as Dr. Boyce and yourself have been speaking, this profession is not about a job. It is really about a calling. And really the thought that how do we continue to just really support our students? Not, and I think Dr. Boyce put this really well. It's not that we're just educators. We are going into the fray. We are going into the gap and standing in the gap, especially when they didn't have internet connection, especially when meals weren't provided. We needed to make sure that we as a district were standing in there. And so I want to step into one of the first of the three buckets that we're going to be talking about, the vision. And can you help me understand, as Dr. Boyce was talking about the district vision, and how have you articulated this to the students, staff, and community? How have you communicated that vision? And really, it's, as we're noticing, visiting all the classrooms, it's permeated throughout. So can you help us understand that?
Absolutely. I'm going to go back and reiterate some of the things that are all aligned, so that way everybody recognizes what we did in Roosevelt in a year and a half. And so, you know, some of the work, they may have been laying the foundation before, but when Dr. Boyce came in, things really changed. And he put together an executive team that hasn't stopped. And that was nearly a year and a half ago. But I want to go ahead and make sure I reiterate what our vision happens to be, because the focus is on making learning fair and equitable for every child. And I'm driven because I see myself every time I look at the face of one of these kids. So it's a community united to create better futures for all. And the key word there is all. That means every student. That means we also assist our families to help them be successful, because when our families are successful, their kids are successful. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we build strong foundations through authentic and innovative experiences to ensure success for every child. That's our mission statement. I'm going to hone in on two key words: authentic. Authentic means that it comes from the community and it's original. Second, it's innovative. Have you heard of a district that has hired an executive director of innovation and learning? We're trailblazers. This district saw the value in that, and they put a person in place to support that. And that's what I get to do all day long. I get to think critically, and I get to be innovative, and I get to be creative. And so that has really been beneficial, and everything is tied to that. That strategic plan goes on because we have 4 goals, and those goals are to make sure that we create quality schools. The second one is to make sure that we have talented staff members, we retain them, and we empower them. It also ensures that we have goal number 3, community engagement, parent involvement, which is so critical. And then goal number 4 is just to ensure that our communities are safe, secure, and that we have responsive learning environments. And that generally, quality schools and responsive learning environments happens to be directly aligned with what I do. So we didn't stop there. I already came into a situation where we had a talented Apple team. And the talented Apple team, I saw how much leadership capacity was on that team. When I came in, one of the things that we worked on was we worked on a long-range plan, and it was based on data. We give the Learning Technology Survey on an annual basis in order to determine where we are and where we need to go. We analyzed the data, and we determined that we needed to grow in 3 areas if we were going to be successful. So we put that long-range plan together, and in those 3 areas, our goal was to grow 10%. All we wanted in 1 year was to grow 10%. And we wanted teachers to become certified in Apple badges. That's number 1. Number 2, we wanted teachers to build their own agency and technology use, so that way they can build student agency and technology use. And then number three, we decided, and this was before the pandemic, we decided that blended learning was really important. And so we needed to use technology in order to support what teachers were doing in the classroom. Okay, we didn't have any knowledge that a pandemic was about to hit and that we would be virtual learning soon. And like I said, all of these things were already occurring, and we set up a foundation in order to be successful. So what are we doing right now? It's aligned to this long-range plan. We're focusing on digital citizenship so that way students can keep a positive digital footprint, that they use the resources appropriate, and that also that they're using credible resources, because misinformation is being spread all over the world today, and kids have access to that. Number two, we focus on the elements of learning. What is effective instruction? And to us, effective instruction happens to start with teamwork, making sure kids can work together, creativity, making sure there's so many different media platforms in order for them to present material. Number three, we make sure that we personalize their learning, because each student learns differently, and we need to apply that behavior that makes them motivated to learn. And then number four, we want to make sure that critical thinking is something that we hone in on, so that way students can think about not only their own thinking, but what are their partners in their virtual classroom thinking? And how do they gauge that? Is it based on some criteria that the teacher sets in the classroom, or what criteria are they using to determine or make sense of the topic? And then number five, which is probably one of the most critical, is real world engagement. We want our students to be connected to the real world, so that way they bring their problems into the classroom, whether it be physical or virtual, and they solve those real world problems using a process like design thinking.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I know that you were leaning into that a resource that we have called the Elements of Learning. It's actually available on Apple Books right now if you'd out there like to see what Dr. Ramos was talking about. And it's actually the thoughts of how do we connect the dots in that learning space? How do we really take it to the next level of higher cognition, the deeper knowledges of the DOK? And as you're thinking about some of your questions, I'm going to throw this question out there if you'd like to start to think about this. As an attendee visiting all these classrooms, what was it that you hoped and wanted to see, feel, know out there? And as I think about this, Dr. Ramos, I'm going to throw that question to you. When people were visiting your classrooms, what was it that you wanted them to see, feel, and know? And I know that you talked about the elements of learning. So can you kind of step into that idea as you hoped? What were you thinking that they could see, feel, or experience?
Gosh, that's a great question. So this is what I believe is happening out there, because we've worked really hard in these areas. But first and foremost, we worked a lot on social emotional learning this year. And so first and foremost, I want to make sure that we focused on relationships. There should have been a lot of love, a lot of care in those classrooms. That's the first thing, because one of the things that's really important right now, especially with what students are being exposed to because of the pandemic, it's important for us to teach them to recognize their emotions, regulate them, and then also navigate through them, hopefully in a positive way. So that's the first thing, love and care. The second thing that I hope that you were able to see is a lot of discussion, a lot of group work, a lot of collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking, because we have focused so much on the elements of learning. And let's face it, the elements of learning are just effective teaching practices. And so embedding them into your lesson, I wish I had the opportunity to learn like that when I was a kid, because teamwork is all about working with your partners and figuring out what do they already know about a certain lesson, or what do they already know about the world around them. Every child is bringing an experience into the classroom. And so we need to focus on that. And if they're misinformed as educators, it's our responsibility to fix that. And then second, creativity. You should have seen creativity. That's really critical right now, because we have so many different ways that a student can tell a story. And that's our North Star. If you remember, I was talking about that in our long range plan. We eventually want kids to get to a place where they're keeping a digital portfolio on their own, so that way they can tell their own educational story and also personal stories, because some of the best writing comes from a personal experience. So definitely you should have seen some creativity. And the third thing that I'm going to go ahead and expand on, kids should have also been critical thinking, because critical thinking are thoughts that we have about a variety of things, whether it be somebody else's thought, my own thought, or a presentation. Students need to be thinking about that, making sense of it, and transitioning from each activity with that information and applying it to different activities as they move along. It's so critical for the teacher to know a student today. Personalized learning is really critical. And I think especially during this time, you might have even seen this. The teacher needs to know a student so well that they can figure out what assignment applies to him or her, using DOK or Bloom's taxonomy, but we need to know what behavior is best in order to move that child, choose that behavior, and then figure out work, assignments, activities that match that student's ability. And you want to make the assignment not easy, because the child will get bored. And you don't want to make it too hard, because you don't want the child to get frustrated. But there should be some level of dedication, effort, and hard work that the child has to apply in order to complete those activities. And so those are some of the things that I hope you were able to see in the classrooms today, because we have been training on them since the time that I came to the Roosevelt School District. And that was a little over a year and a half ago.
It's kind of interesting that there's a lot of focus on things like creativity, critical thinking, even some of these communication. And I think about how some people call those the soft skills. But really what you've leaned into is that it's this idea of essential skills. And we know, according to the World Economic Forum, where businesses around the world are saying, what is the most important skills that our students need as they graduate? And what you've actually outlined was exactly that. Our students aren't being asked to be, quote, proficient in math, not that that's not important, but what the World Economic Forum is saying is that there are all these skills of the deeper, quote, essential skills are needed. And they actually even quoted that by 2020, which was last year, creativity is the most important skill. So I am glad that you stepped into that, because it really, I think about that long term of where are we going to, how do we prepare and empower our students for the future, I think is a key aspect of what you're referring to. I'm going to look towards the audience. I see a question here, and I'm going to throw this at you, Dr. Ramos, and see what your thoughts here. So obviously, this year has been a difficult year, to say the least. And so what is the most difficult thing that you ran into during the virtual learning this past year?
Oh my goodness, that's an incredible question, because this is something that I really have to give some thought to, because we've been moving at such a fast speed. I mean, it's been quicker than the speed of light, I think. But no, I think if you were to ask me what has been the greatest challenge, it has been mindset. Mindset has been the greatest challenge. And I'm going to go ahead and bring it down to a level so that way everybody recognizes what we were coming into. And so when I joined Dr. Boyce's team and we were all in our first year, I experienced some things that were really different. And, nobody for no reason or no fault at all. I'm not pinpointing or making anybody responsible for this, but a lot of people worked in silos, and there was a lack of communication, and I felt like people felt a little bit diminished. And so, I recognized that early on, and there were some things that I needed to do. I needed to build relationships. And there's a whole lesson that I've taught my staff in the past, because I was a principal for 12 years and we focused on building relationships. So there are some ways and some strategies that I have to do that, so For me, what was really important was implementing like 4 T's. I have teeth, so smile at people. I have 2 eyes, so when having conversation with them, even if it's difficult, like you have to look at people in the eye. And then I also have a sense of touch. Remember, this was pre-pandemic. So handshakes, high fives, a fist bump, like all those things like were really, really critical. And then the next one happens to be time. I'm available 24/7. And so I let my staff that I work with, because I work with 5 different departments in my division. I work with facilities, maintenance and operations, custodians, student records, and technology. All of those are really large areas and they consume a lot of time. But I had to build relationships with every director in my division and make sure there was a high level of trust. And so you're probably wondering, well, that still doesn't answer how you built mindsets. So I'm going to tell you what I did with these people. So beyond relationships and building trust, I had to make sure that I modeled that behavior. I had to make sure that I had integrity. If I said that I was going to do something, I better do it and I better follow up. So even today and throughout my career, I will model the expectation because I am in the trenches alongside of them and I work with them. The next thing that we did, which was really huge, is we started reading and we started doing book studies. And I started meeting with this team on a bi-weekly basis. And so we got together and now it's virtual, but same concept. We got together and we started reading and we're already in our 3rd book in a year and a half. And we dissect them and we talk about them long and hard. But we read 3 books that have been so critical in changing mindset. The first one is Carol Dweck's Mindset, A New Psychology for Success. The second one happens to be Heart by Tim Knold, and that's all about leading with heart. And number 3 is Leading Change by John, I believe it's John Cotter. He's the author. So we're reading those, dissecting them and figuring out, and we can see ourselves in the mirror. And every time we end a meeting, they self-reflect. How is this connected to something that I learned? How is this connected to our long-range plan? And how is this connected to the district's strategic plan? I give them 15 minutes of every meeting to go ahead and reflect on those concepts. And then they send me their individual growth plan. And I give them feedback. And sometimes it's just a conversation between the 2 of us. And then I send it back to them. So that way it's a 2-way communication between me and my directors. I want to really hone in on something that has been really important. It has been the crucial conversation that has changed many scenarios. And so I meet with a lot of district leaders. And so I have to talk the talk. If I were to sit in a meeting where I hear somebody with some deficit thinking, like I need to address that. And I'm going to give you an example where this is some hard conversation, but not long ago, I was in a meeting with one of our principals. And if you know our land geographically, we're on the north side of South Mountain. There is a south side of South Mountain that is more affluent. And there are 2 different school districts. One is the Kyrene School District and one is the Roosevelt School District, which we are. I heard a principal say in a small group, say something like, let's just face it, the kids at the south end of South Mountain are just brighter than ours. If I didn't address that problem and make sure that that principal felt safe, then that would be a problem because I would be permeating the issue. So what I said gently to the principal was, do you believe that? Because you serve people in Roosevelt, and the people in Roosevelt are just as capable as succeeding as anyone else. They just need the support and the scaffolds. Our students need the support and the scaffolds in order to support them. But I believe that I can get there, or we can get there together. And I also shared that, if you can have that philosophy, but Roosevelt is probably not the school district that you should work, because our kids come from underserved communities And it is important for us to be that support, that crutch, that structure in order to help them succeed. And so these are some of the difficult conversations I'm having on a regular basis in order to support our kids who are kids just like me.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I know that the biggest thing that us in our conversation here is about mindset. And as you referred to what's been going on, you're trying to think about this idea that it's not so much that it was bad, but you're rather saying we're moving in a direction, as Dr. Boyce has clarified, we are moving in this North Star. We're moving towards this direction. And so how do we together move there? First of all, I love the fact that you said, I'm going to do something about this. I am going to step into this area about the 4 T's. I am going to do something versus just simply saying this is what it is. And I think about that in the next area. There is a question, but I'll hold that for the next section. As we start to think about the mindset in the aspects of culture, I've often said this as I've talked to superintendents and principals and leaders across the districts and schools here that I work with. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. And if you don't address the culture, if you don't address like what you just said, it's not so much to reprimand, but rather to say we are moving towards this North Star. And so I am curious, thinking about culture and thinking about technology, what is the culture around technology? And maybe you can frame it in the sense of what it was like before and what it is now. And even like you said, it's only been a year. So what does that cultural mindset from before to now look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I first came into the district, like I said, there was already a team here, and there were 6 schools that were piloting the Apple iPad. And so I came into a team that already had, a vision, and they were already creative people, already figuring out like ways to possibly deploy iPads. But I wanted to share with you that I was so excited about like what I had learned in my doctoral program, and then what I had learned as a principal. And so I couldn't wait to come here and like work collaboratively and share ideas to figure out like how to move us forward. And so one of the things that we did that was really different was I learned from a lot of school districts. I've been in 5 of them here in Arizona. Is technology is always purchased, but there doesn't seem to be a focus on training. And so a lot of times technology gets deployed without any training in place. And so with that knowledge and the strong team that was here, we decided that we were going to train people before dispersing the technology. And that meant having meetings with parents because they were about to get devices that they had never been privy to before. And so we needed to make sure we set up meetings with them during Meet the Teacher Night and then also at conferences. And so that was one of the first things that we scheduled. And then we had a really robust deployment schedule with a training program. And the training program, you might think it was going to focus on teachers, but we didn't. We focused on the leadership instead. We felt like if we could train principals, assistant principals, school leader interns, instructional coaches, and technology learning leaders on how to use iWork Suite, on the elements of learning, and then also how to keep digital portfolios, then we would be successful. And so we went to work on a plan, and we work with Apple with our learning specialists. We have 2 of them, in Melissa Kreider and Dominic Patine. They work with us in facilitating those meetings. And so we met in all-day trainings with principals and assistant principals and instructional coaches, and then our technology learning leaders at night. So that way we can go ahead and put a plan in place in order to support our teachers once they got back to the campus. And so it was their responsibility, because in Roosevelt, we have the good fortune of having early release time on Wednesdays, so that way teachers can meet in the afternoon. During those meetings, they were to go out and embed what we were learning in Apple integration. So that was another element that was necessary in order to change the narrative in Roosevelt. So instead of training our teachers, we trained our leaders so that our leaders could go out and train their teachers. So a trainer of trainer model, so to speak.
Yeah, and I loved how you actually, when I was talking about culture, you knew the distinction that it's not separated, that culture isn't about culture, and this is vision, and this is the capacity, that they all play a pivotal role within itself. So being able to change the mindset within culture, you obviously looked into the idea of building the capacity. And one of the things that you mentioned is it's building the teachers' usage, building the knowledge, as well as for the leaders. And I'll even take it a step further, that you weren't just talking about this idea of just handing out devices. You were saying, and this has been a kind of thought out there, there's a digital divide. I don't think that's actually the thought. It's actually rather than the digital divide, it's the digital use divide. And I think that's where you're going, and you continually talk about this idea of how do we prepare our teachers to use it and understand the impact it can make, the positive impact it can make. And then also, without the leadership, it would be somewhat of a moot point. So you really stepped into saying, we need to really think about the idea of how do we prepare our teachers, our leaders, to really think about carrying this forward, this vision forward in the particular sites. And you were talking about, I think we talked about this early on with Dr. Boyce, is that you're establishing even a new school that, oddly enough, we're in a COVID pandemic world. Rather than, quote, sustain and maintain, you're pushing the envelope. You're pushing it to give different opportunities for students. And I really appreciate that. I think, and I'm going to go right now to one of the questions that was asked by our attendees here. And the question here is, Roosevelt, as you've done different things, this distance learning, how have your discipline and guidance and counseling adapted accordingly to this new model that we're teaching, right? Whether it's partially hybrid, partially online, what is that model of approach and discipline and guidance for counseling for our students?
That's a great question. So you will be happy to know this. A podcast is going to be dropped on Friday in our Be Bolder podcast, and you can find that on Spotify. And I just had the opportunity to interview our social workers. And so it was such an incredible experience because they taught me so much about what's going on in the community just by having these dialogues with them. And so it's going to be about 30 minutes long. So I invite you to listen. But here's what I learned. So first and foremost, we use Apple technology, and it happens to be like one of the best devices in all of the world. It's easy to use, it's innovative in its design, and it's also a durable product. And why I say that is because our parents are now using it. And so when we used to have parents who were concerned about coming forward and saying they need help, the device has helped them actually find resources. And so they're reaching out like never before to our social workers. And what we've been able to do here is we've been able to work with them, find them resources, because some of them are needing grief counseling. We also have been able to work with some of the community partners in order to provide food pantries. At one of our schools, at Lassen Elementary School, they were the first to open a pantry, and we have been able to feed 350 families on a weekly basis from one of those pantries. And so in addition to that, they're calling to check in with kids, they're guiding community circles, they're serving as a social emotional resource for our teachers, our parents, and our community members. I mean, it's been quite a remarkable opportunity for these people to really connect. And they have shared stories with me, whether they're developing a video just so that way they can send it out either through Canvas or Class Dojo, but a video just to show them all of the resources that we have in the district that we can support them with. So there's all these creative ways on a multitude of platforms, because the Apple device has so many different applications that we're able to support our families in so many ways. But if I was to say, we have fed our families. We have a weekly drive-through that happens at Greenfield and Kennedy School, but there's so many things that are happening right now that I probably would not be able to capture all of them in this 45 minutes. I wanted to let you know, though, there is a podcast coming out Friday. Please, it's called Be Bolder, and it's going to focus on our social workers. So check that out.
Thank you so much. And I just want to call out the idea that you're reaching out to your community. You created a podcast there. Obviously, we have the standard website, but you're stepping into realms that, as we start to leverage the different technologies, how do we continue to connect, right? It's not, and we know that this is not about students only. You mentioned several times, how do we connect to the parents? How do we support them? Because one, we know in the situation that the students are at home now. So parents may be going to work or working from home. And how do we help them juggle some of these thoughts? So it's really nice to see how you've kind of, and I wouldn't say perfected it, but actually at the same time, you've worked through this situation where you're trying to really engage the parents, equip them with the knowledge, as well as equip them with the technology. And so as we kind of think about the last thing here, I kind of think about what you've been doing. Can you help me understand a little bit about some of the experts that you've brought in to support? Because we know that it doesn't take just a parent, it doesn't take just an administrator or an educator, but it takes an entire village. And sometimes that village is a huge village, like a metropolitan village. Who have you brought in to really support what you're doing here at Roosevelt?
Oh my goodness, so many people. So first and foremost, I just wanted to let you know that, again, I work with a team of people, and I work with, my own technology team. There's a group that meets on every Friday, and we meet sometimes from 8 to 9, sometimes from 9 to 8, but it depends on people's schedules. But we meet every week for an hour in order to determine what is needed. We do a needs assessment all of the time. What is needed in Roosevelt in order to support our teachers, our administrators, and our parent community. So it's made up of, we have our director of technology. We also have one of our technicians from technology as well meets on in this team. We also have our Apple professional learning specialist, Apple Melissa, we call her. And then we have a lot of executive members, whether it be the systems engineer or the education leadership executive, our accounts manager from Apple, but we meet on a regular basis in order to determine what is best in order to move forward our initiatives that we have in place. And so again, what we focus on is effective teaching practices, elements of learning, digital citizenship, and basically parent training. How do we support them? Because I want to tell you, one of the things that we did that's really different is we have a parent training portal where they can go to a YouTube channel and get videos on like how to set up their iPad. One of the things that's really important is the iPad has a variety of features, and parents need to know how to set them up, whether it be the feature to make print or font larger or smaller. That's critical. How do you work the volume? Also critical. Some people don't recognize that there's a text-to-speech feature on the iPad. So parents need to know this. So making sure that the iPad, when you highlight a text, that it will read it for you, so that way you can hear not only the vocabulary, but how to pronounce that vocabulary. In addition to that, if you make a PDF of the document, there's all types of ways to like mark up that document in order to get support. And one of my greatest features is a lot of us use the internet for reading articles, but sometimes when you have those articles, they're so stimulating, right? Because there's so many things on those articles, but you can go to a reader view and you push that button up in that like search menu on the left-hand side, and it turns it into plain text. And why is that critical? Because you don't have all that stimulation, and you can highlight, mark up, do whatever you need to in order to annotate that text. In addition to that, if you hover over a word with your finger, a menu bar comes up and you could choose lookup. And when you look up that word, it gives you the definition to that word. So there's so many things that are necessary, and that's why we meet every Friday, but I don't do this alone. I do this with other people, and I'm so fortunate to be a part of this experience alongside of an incredible team.
Thank you so much. And I just want to kind of highlight something that you were saying here, is that when you brought the iPads into the district, or when they were brought in, it wasn't just the focus of, quote, internet connectivity, being able to access. I think what you've really looked into is the full ecosystem of the device. And I think about the full device, full ecosystem of the built-in, just kind of things that you talked about. When you open that iPad, there are all these built-in features. Like you said, it can read the iPad for you. It could record the screen for you. It could actually clear out so that you're only reading the document in Safari itself. Then you even stepped into this other realm of saying there are some native apps that are on the iPad that come as soon as you open up the box, it's there. And then of course there is 2.5 million other apps out there on the App Store that you're leveraging. So that ecosystem is not just about the device, but you're even leveraging the idea that there is a team. There's an Apple education team like myself, Melissa, our account executive, Carla, and Javier, our systems engineer. You're leveraging the full team to support. And I will even take a step further. You keep on mentioning things like the elements of learning, the elements of leadership. Those are some of the resources that we have available from Apple. And I love how the fact that you're thinking, what are the resources out there? Can I benefit, or can it be of benefit to supporting my district? And I will call this out for anyone out there. If you don't know your local Apple team, by all means, let us know. We'll connect you. Put it in the chat and let us know that you don't know who your account executive is, your leadership executive like myself. There are other resources. And I think Dr. Ramos was talking about this, things that like Apple Teacher, when they go into Apple Teacher, there are a plethora of things like Everyone Can Code, which is a curriculum for teaching our kids to code and actually looking towards jobs in the future, or even things like Everyone Can Create. Those are project guides to helping our students. And so, Dr. Ramos, first of all, thank you for this conversation. Thank you for just helping us understand what is actually happening in Roosevelt. And there's so many bright spots that are exciting to see. With that in mind, I'd like to ask you one last question. Is there anything else that you'd like to say as I turn it back to you, and you can open up the questions for the audience?
Yes, I would just like to share this. A lot of times you're wondering if the work that you're doing is working. And so there are two ways in which we've been able to leverage some data. And so the first way happens to be, of course, we just surveyed our community again, and I'm talking about our teachers using the Learning Technology Survey. And so what we do is we're going to compare the results from last year to this year. So that way we can see whether or not we've grown that 10% that we had targeted in our long range plan. That's the first way. But if I could tell you a quick story about Digital Learning Day of 2020, that was our first time that we had an experience like this. And we were really like out to gather data. Is this working or is this not working? And this is the narrative data, the qualitative data that is sometimes difficult to capture if you don't visit and observe the classroom. So when we went out, we were in a third grade classroom at Campbell Elementary School. And I was amazed watching kids use pages, collaborating with each other, and working out a problem in math together, collectively. Now they're doing it virtually, but this was in person at the time. And not only were they doing it and coming up with their own strategies, through inquiry-based learning to get to the solution to the problem. But at the end, when the teacher was culminating and summarizing that one problem, the kids were able to share the screen up on the flat screen where everyone could see their work, and the students had the opportunity to justify their responses with evidence. And it was an incredible experience. So that was one example. Then we went to another school over at Valley View Elementary School. We walked in the classroom and all of the kids were sitting around the teacher, and they were listening to a story being read from the iPad. The teacher then sent the kids back in order for the kids to share different elements of the story using any media type that they wanted to in order to reiterate what they learned. Again, the students took over their screen on their flat screen television and again, discussed and summarized all of their work. So there are two ways that we're measuring whether this is working or not. One is the Learning Technology Survey, the quantitative data, and two, the qualitative data, capturing the narrative. And if I could leave you with anything, it is at the end of the day, it's all about building relationships. Number one, making sure you're connected and people can trust you. Number two, effective teaching practices. For us, it's all about teamwork, critical thinking, creativity, personalization, and real-world engagement. And then number three, just making sure you surround yourself with the right people, because people matter. More heads are better than one anytime. And I definitely trust the people that I work with. So thank you, Dr. G.
Thank you, Dr. Ramos. And with that, as we close off here, if you have any questions, please put them into the chat so that way Dr. Ramos has them and he can connect with you. If you'd like, he has his information up there, as well as if you'd like to connect with our team. If you're local here in Arizona, by all means, connect with Carla and myself. And if you are out of this state, and if you don't know who your team is, by all means, still connect with us. We can connect you to your local Apple team. And with that in mind, Dr. Ramos, thank you again for sharing this moments with us and being able to take snapshots of what's happening around your entire district. And I'd like to thank everyone at Roosevelt for supporting this, from Dr. Boyce all the way through the team, as well as all the teachers and the students, especially, that have led us into having a glimpse of what's happening in your classroom. Again, appreciate your time today. Dr. Ramos, thank you again.
Dr. Chung, thank you so much. I appreciate you tremendously. Thank you for all the continuous dialogue, and thank you to the entire Apple team. We are grateful. So at this time, we're going to move into a Q&A session. And so during that Q&A, we're going to go ahead and ask you to ask your questions in a couple of ways. And so either way is fine with us. If you want to go ahead and plug your question into the Q&A, feel free to do so. We would love to answer your question in that way, or just simply put at the bottom toolbar, you'll see that there's a raise your hand. If you would just raise your hand, we'll go ahead and pull you off of mute, or you can come off of mute yourself and ask your question live. But in closing, I want to make sure that I do say the following things before people run away to do different things. Know that we're going to stay on here until 11 o'clock today because we're committed to you and we want to answer your questions. But in closing, I hope you enjoyed our story today. We've been working in overdrive for about 1.5 years. The secret to our success happens to be we have established a vision, we've built relationships, we focused on effective teaching, we surrounded ourselves with amazing resources, and most importantly, we have kept the focus on ensuring learning is fair and equitable for every child. We did not do this alone. We had help. Before moving into the question and answer response, I would like to thank Dr. Boyce and the entire executive team. I'd also like to thank our Apple executive team, especially Melissa Kreider. In addition to that, I would like to thank our entire technology department, especially Mr. Nate Hawkins, who happens to be our director. Also, we had many education and business partners who helped us along the way. Know that I am grateful for everything that you've supported us with. We're going to stick around till 11 o'clock to answer your questions. We are willing to assist you with contact information, email addresses, and virtual visits. We greatly appreciate your participation today. Thank you so much. We'll take the questions. So I'm going to pull up the chat just in case. Do we have any questions at this time?
There's one in the chat. It's a comment.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
We do have a question,
Sure.
Dr. Ramos, from the Q&A. The question is, does your user agreement include Pear Deck, Mentimeter, Nearpod, Padlet, Canvas, quizzes, and the various other online digital tools used that require parent consent under COPA? How often do you add new digital resources to the agreement?
Yeah, so that's a great question. If you could go ahead and take that person's contact information down, Nate, and we'll get that to them. I do want to let the community know that we do have user agreements to support things like hotspots, because those are in addition to our iPad. And so like user agreements do include things like that, but I want to be very specific and answer your question to determine what applications we definitely have on our user agreement. Nate, unless you know, do you have an answer for that?
No, I do not.
Okay, I'll go ahead and research it and then get back to the participant if that works.
I have a question here, Dr. Ramos.
Sure.
One of the questions is, as education moves forward, how do we see the collaboration growing between districts, whether in state or out of state? How do you see this?
That is a great question, because it is the reason we're doing this today is because we do not want to hoard the information. And so we are designing something, and I've been like journaling about the process throughout, but we've been writing about this process so that way another school district or another out-of-state partner can take what we're doing and just replicate it in their own context. You know, of course, modify it in the way that works for you, but we have designed something that we want to have somebody lift up and take to their own building. And so, yeah, please contact me. We're open to collaboration. Just to let you know, most recently, we actually had a business partner join us for our Apple meetings because they wanted to learn more about what they could do to leverage this as an opportunity. And so I have no problem with you joining us, and we can give you the link to support you joining our meeting and provide you with the information that's necessary. You request it, I'll send it to you. No problem at all. You have my email address, and I'm fine with you having my phone number as well.
We also have another question here that talks about survey activity. And I can talk about a piece of that, but they were specifically asking about a survey activity within the community. Dr. Ramos was referring to something about the Learning Technology Survey. And what that is actually a survey that we here at Apple can help administer to your faculty. And what it would do is survey your teachers, your educators out there. And it's a quick survey of 15 minutes. It really kind of sees and kind of takes a snapshot of the thought of what's happening at the school site. And the great thing is, if you're a superintendent or if you're trying to get a pulse of every school, we could actually have a multi learning technology survey sent to all of your schools, and then we can aggregate that together. So on one report, you can see the differences of each of the schools, as well as the similarities of what the mindset is, where the technology usage and what the teachers are thinking about, how they want to kind of move towards. And I think it's a great way for schools to do this maybe once or twice a year to kind of see where we are and where we're wanting to go, and then kind of seeing if this is our vision for the district. Can we get a pulse of, are we on the right track for that? Dr. Ramos, I don't know if there was a survey or anything that you were using to connect to the community. I was just talking about the ones for the district in itself, but were you using any way to connect to the community in itself?
Yes, we always connect our to our community, because one of the things that we're trying to get a pulse right now, we're trying to get a pulse on whether or not parents want to be in person or virtual learning, especially as we start to work toward what in-person learning looks like for this spring. So we do that through our principals, because our principals know our communities the most. And so there are a variety of platforms that they're using. A lot of us use forms from Microsoft in order to support that survey that goes out on a regular basis. And usually the survey is generated, the questions are generated from a district level, so that way we all have the same message going out, because we don't want 19 different communities. There are 19 different schools doing something different. And so that has been really critical for us.
And to follow up with this question about the surveying, what, thinking about efficacy and thinking about decision making, how high of a response rate do you get, whether to help you with these decision makings from the and I'll bucket it a little bit here, from the educators with the LTS, the Learning Technology Survey, and then also what you were just referring to? How's the response rate and to help guide your decision making?
Yeah, so that's a great question. But one of the things that I ask is I ask for as much capacity as possible, because we have early release days on Wednesdays. I had asked every principal to put 15 minutes aside from one of those meetings within a month's time. We leave the window open for a month, and take one of those meetings and actually survey, give them time, give teachers time to take that survey. That's how valuable the information is. So we're shooting for 100%. This year, we had 18 of our schools participate in the survey, and that's a pretty large number of schools participating. Imagine if that's every teacher, because they've given the time and provided the time for them to take the survey. We're making decisions based on that data.
And that's 18 out of how many schools again?
19.
Wow. Yeah. And thank you so much. Another question here. Thank you for those questions, and keep them coming in. If you have questions and you're here to just ask away, please put them into the Q&A for us. This is specific for Zoom. And so obviously across the world, a lot of schools, businesses are using Zoom. So how effective have you, and this is specific for Zoom, how effective have you found Zoom to be? And are there any new features maybe that you're incorporating from Zoom in itself?
God, that's a great question. So know this, there were some things that were happening in the district prior pandemic that we were already implementing, and Zoom happened to be one of those things. So we started having principal meetings. Instead of going out to sites, we started having principal meetings on Zoom. And so it became the platform. And so we already knew how to use it. It seemed pretty user friendly. And so it has developed over the course of time. And so what we're able to do now is able to do some markup, because there's some annotation features in Zoom. There are also breakout rooms that have been really helpful in getting project-based learning off the ground in a digital platform. And then finally, there's also a whiteboard that you can use, and you can use all kinds of markup strategies using Zoom. In my opinion, one of the greatest features of Zoom is being able to share the screen, because I know that there are other platforms that don't allow that to happen, but we're able to share learning based on what we can see one another working on, depending on how you have your settings set in order to collaborate. In addition to that, we also use Apple. So Apple has a collaboration button, and the both of you can be working collaboratively while pulling up the document on your shared screen, which is really, really like helpful. So what I mean by that is, while somebody at a different site, I could invite them to work on my document using the collaborative button up at the top of my document and sharing my work with them. And so that way, that shared work, they can work from their end, and we're visualizing it right on Zoom.
Thank you. Here's a question, and I think we've kind of answered parts of it, but maybe to kind of coalesce it and give it this not straightforward answer, but kind of, this is what someone asked here is, how do you implement technology to help students, not only with the academics, but to become even better citizens? So not just the focus of academics, as Dr. Quincy Boyce was saying, there's more to this. So how do you implement that technology to focus and help students beyond the academics?
Well, we talked about that a lot, because, you know, we're going to potentially come back this year in person. And so one of the things that's really important is that kids haven't been in session for a year. And so it's important for them to come back and design their own classroom. We know that we have a different capacity, and we're not coming back the same way. We probably never will, because we now have the capacity. Remember that blended learning was in our long-range plan. We've been working on building that by 10%. Well, now we probably have built it by like 100%. We know that we can have students work at home using their iPad and bring in the information to the classroom. That's the first thing. The second thing is we also have an initiative in our district to work on signature programs. And so signature programs, some people know them as signature academies, they actually support our students in laying the pipeline in order for them to prepare for high school and college and career. So I'm going to give you an example. Lassen Elementary School just recently did an incredible presentation on their focus for their signature academy. They're going to become a science and food and environmental nutrition school next year. And so with that, they've been working with their business partners in order to bring in the skills that students will need to know in order to be successful in the agriculture world in South Phoenix. So they already are figuring out ways to incorporate gardening, agriculture. They have a restaurant on their campus called Healthy Roots. So culinary arts. They're bringing all of those programs together and embedding it in the curriculum, like real world engagement, in order to, again, support that pipeline and give students real world skills in order to be successful in their own community. And they also have the benefit of having spaces of opportunity, which is a orchard next door. So that way they can do like those project-based learning using a resource that's nearby. And so it's going to be an incredible experience, but we have 19 schools that are moving in that direction. And next year we'll be able to open 5 of them if all goes well. And I mean 5 schools with a focus, making sure kids have that pipeline that they can follow.
Yeah, right. Thank you so much about this. There is another question here. And it's interesting because they said you set the bar pretty high for the nation about what you're doing here at Roosevelt. And so there is always a fine balance between the idea of what we're doing here at work and with everything going on at home. And so how do your teachers find balance while working at such a high capacity? How do they find that balance?
Yeah, that's awesome. So we remember that we're people first. And so we have to build culture. We have to establish that. So like relationship building is huge. Social emotional learning, which are those 4 pillars: relationship, recognizing your emotions, regulating emotions, and then also navigating through them in a positive way. It's not only for that's not only for students, that's for adults as well. And so yesterday I started my meeting after I went over like what our vision happens to be and what our goals for the day happen to be, I started our meeting with the community circle. And I wanted people to like go ahead and have some conversations with each other and let them know that yes, times have been difficult, and that we do have a past, but let's pull out the golden nuggets from our past and let's go ahead and celebrate those things. And then one of the things that we were able to do is get a list together of those things that have happened over the course of time, and then let them know, like, remember, is that enough? Or do you want to do more in your life? Like, in what ways are you inspired and motivated to do more? And it's just an opportunity for people to talk to each other, to like empathize with each other, because this is a challenging time, not only for kids, but for teachers as well. So if we can put up a choice board in the teachers lounge, and teachers go up and select one of those items from the choice board, and it says, go for a walk for 3 minutes, allow them to go for a walk for 3 minutes. If there is another one, you go up and you say, you know what, go to your classroom and watch this YouTube video for 10 minutes. Give them the opportunity to do things like that, so that way they can take a break, because we're all suffering the same thing. We're all going through the same thing. And so it's all about being compassionate. So those are two major things that we do in order to support our teachers. And we're really cognizant about the schedule that we're embedding in our system, so that way we don't overwhelm them. Fourth, the training. The training is really geared toward our teachers, and how can we make you the best practitioner? How can we support you emotionally? What can we do in order to help you? A lot of our teachers today, you saw they're teaching from home. They were coming to you from their homes because we want them to feel safe and secure to deliver the instruction for our kids and to support our families.
As we have a few more minutes, please keep the questions rolling in. Dr. Ramos, I have to admit, the whole idea of everything you just said was based on a relationship, based on this idea of empathy. And I know that when we meet, every time we're meeting, there's a constant call out of, yes, we have to do the business. And yes, that's true. But there is this whole thing that we do, and you started this, where in the first minutes of the time, you go and do a circle and ask about celebrations. What are some celebrations that you have? And I love how our team loves this, is every single time you're just calling out, what are some celebrations that happened over this week? And it wasn't so much about work, it's just celebrations in life. And so I know when I had my daughter during this past year, that was my celebration. And the fact that we could all celebrate, just because, like you said, there is this blurred line now between what work and home life look like, because as you said, we're entering into literally the homes of our educators. And so this is actually a very intimate space for them. And yet, how do we balance that is a key. And so I'm glad that you stepped into this thought of, how do we continue to treat people like people and really embrace them in a relationship, knowing that we still have to get the job done, but then at the same time, calling out some of those things like celebrations. I love that idea.
Yeah, it's something that I've learned, way back from when I was a principal. I just want to say, you have to focus on culture first, because like you say, Dr. G, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And if you don't have the right culture, if you don't have the right building trust, if you don't have the right celebrations in place, if you don't have that people-oriented skill, that could be a challenge. That could be harmful to the environment. And you have to walk the walk and talk the talk. I mean, all of the time you're on display. And so that's one of the things that we need to recognize as leaders, is there's somebody always watching what you do. And so I think it's really critical that, we model the expectation.
It's so funny that you're just talking about that, because it reminds me of something that Simon Sinek said. And if you haven't seen Simon Sinek, please go out there and watch his video on YouTube. He talks about the why, but he says, people don't buy what you sell them. People buy why you sell them. And it's not so much a product that we're referring to, but when you think about even going all the way to the level of students, when we're trying to teach them, they understand why you're there. And so when you instill in them the why, when we start to talk to educators and we really connect why we do what we do, that's when people get on board. And there's a obviously gap. Sometimes people don't get on board, but that is the key, is really, like you said, Dr. Ramos, is how do we connect with people? And really, when we go to that level of saying, this is why we do what we do, I think it makes it so much clearer, because that's where people literally jump on the boat with you.
Yeah, Dr. G, I have to say something. You just reminded me of the story that's so hilarious. And so each school year, when I was working with a teaching staff, we used to start with building relationships. And the teachers thought, how is he going to do a training on building relationships? But we practiced it. And we had to practice it, because if we didn't, people wouldn't recognize how important it happens to be. So right here in front of everybody, I'm going to go ahead and share you what that training included, because I think that is so important, and that's what the foundation happens to be. So first and foremost, people like nicknames. So if you can come up with a nickname for people, it personalizes the relationship. And for 25 years, I've been giving nicknames to students, teachers, and parents that I know well, and they give me a nickname. And it's awesome, because when you are not called by your nickname, it throws you off, and you're like, oh my goodness, like we must be having a formal meeting now. And so it's a really interesting like phenomenon. So that's the first thing. There are some limits. It has to be a nickname that the person agrees upon. It can't be something that is derogatory. That's the first thing.
Positive.
Yeah, positive, definitely. Second is that you have to make I notice statements. And so, Dr. G, I noticed that you're wearing black. You know, Dr. G, I noticed that you're wearing a goatee. And I would suggest here, when you're giving those types of statements, that you don't give value to them, like, oh, I like, you know, black, or whatever the case may be. But this is really important for people that are like really hard to crack, because over the course of time, don't overuse it though, but over the course of time, if you notice enough things about them, they're going to say something like, hey, that person really cares about me. So those are the first two strategies. The first one happens to be nicknames. Second one is I notice statements. And then I mentioned in the broadcast earlier, the third thing, which was the 4 T's. You have teeth, so smile at people. You have 2 eyes, so look at people in the eye. You have also that sense of touch. So make sure that when the pandemic is over, you're giving high fives. And then also you have time. So spend time with people outside of the school day. But I just want to thank everybody, because I know there's people from all over the country here, from like New Jersey, Michigan, as well as Louisiana and beyond. Thank you, everybody. You are a partner of Roosevelt simply for joining us today. I'm open to like answering questions, sharing information with you, and just planning together. All right, so I look forward to hearing from you. Nate, if you'll go ahead and leave us with our contact information at the end. Dr. G, thank you so much. I don't think I can ever thank you for all you've done for us. Have a good afternoon, everybody. Enjoy. Thank you. Nate, if you could end with the video with the keynote presentation with our contact information, that'd be great. Thank you.
Dr. Ramos, thank you for hosting this. If there's anyone interested in enrolling, they can contact me or you, and we can walk them through that process. So we're here to help anyone who wants to enroll their children here at Roosevelt School District, where we are doing amazing and innovative things.
Thank you. Ms. Figueroa, thank you for all your support today. I'm looking to enroll students from all over the state, and then we're going to work on teachers from all over the country. What do you think?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.